Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. Today, I am going to cover checking initial placement in Read Naturally Live. It is part one of our two-part monitoring student performance section. Today, we're going to cover this initial phase. There is another webinar coming up in, I think it's 2 weeks, February 22nd, that will cover what you see in the lower right-hand corner that's grayed out, Keeping Students Challenged. That's the second part of monitoring student performance. And that will be available in another webinar in 2 weeks. So we'll begin by covering today checking initial placement, which is ideally done very early on in your implementation of Read Naturally Live. Whenever we're monitoring student performance, there's a couple of kind of general rules I like to think about. And I think intuitively educators understand this, and we know this. When we want our students to make as much progress as possible, we need them to be challenged, but we can't let them get frustrated, right? You'll lose them. You've got a really big uphill battle if you don't hook the kid. So they need to be challenged, so it's interesting, but they can't be frustrated. So you want them to be in a level that is difficult, but is not to the point of frustration. You also want students to have goals that are challenging, but that they are still able to meet, right? It's much more satisfying when your goal is something that you're pleased with yourself for being able to do, but is also something that took some effort to get there. Okay, so that's kind of what we talk about in both of the monitoring student performance sections. So again, today we're going to focus on that checking initial placement. It happens ideally after 3 stories in Read Naturally Live. Keeping students challenged over time. That's what we will cover in an upcoming webinar. And that is typically done once students have passed more than 6 stories. So today, checking initial placement. Ideally, you will do this when your students have passed somewhere between 3 and 6 stories. So what is checking initial placement? Well, sort of, it's part of placement. And it has the name in there because that it is actually part of our 2-phase placement process. So conducting initial placement. So when you started using Read Naturally Live with students, they were unable to begin working until they had a level and a goal that was assigned to them. In order to select the right series, level, and goal, you took the student through the Read Naturally Live placement process. It's built in to the program. And through that process, you had the student read maybe 1, maybe 2 or 3 passages until you found the one that was right. So that was the first time you dealt with data. But it was a really small amount of data. It was a couple stories on one day. And if we know anything about struggling readers, it's that they are inconsistent. And so checking initial placement is when we look at a lot more data from about 3 passages that they've been working on in Read Naturally Live. And we ask ourselves, if I had all this information on my initial placement day, would I have still put the student in this level? Would I still have assigned this goal? Okay, so we're going to take the students' average data from the first 3 stories and compare it to the initial level criteria and the initial goal criteria. Okay, I'm going to show you where you can do that, where you can find that information about the students' data, the averages from the students' data, and that is in what we call the Students at a Glance report. Okay, I will show you how to run this report on your students. Before I do that, I want to walk you through what is in this report. So if you noticed, this page is the full page image. So I'm just zooming in on this so that you can see the data that's in that very top section of that report. And we can see the left section that is white. It says series and level. So in that very first section, you're provided with the information about which series and which level is assigned to the student currently. So this student is working in the sequence series, level 2.5. We have the date the level was started, the number of stories passed. Ideally, this will be about 3. We say 3 to 6. If you have some at 2 and some at 4, that's okay. So you're just going to try to get as close to 3 as you can. The next section is gray, and you can see the header in that section is fluency. So this provides you with information about timings, cold scores, pass scores, expression ratings, that sort of thing. I want you to notice that each column has 2 numbers that are separated by a forward slash. Okay. This does not say 41 41ths. It is telling us that after the first 3 stories, the student read on average 41 words correctly per minute on the cold score. The most recent 3 stories, the student read 41. The reason they are identical is because the student has passed 3 stories. Okay, so once your student has passed more than 3 stories, the numbers in each column will be different. Okay, so then you're looking at changes, growth, right? But in this phase of data analysis, we're just saying, if I have this information on placement day, would I still have put them in this level and goal? Okay, so here we have the current goal, current hot timing score, the current expression rating or average of the expression rating, the average number of practices. So what that means is students are unable, when they're working in Read Naturally Live, they go through their steps. And when they are on the practice step, they're unable to go on to the quiz until they reach their goal on the practice step independently. So the number of practices gives you information about how hard it was for the student to meet that goal during the practice. Now we have the average quiz score, average words in retell, and words in word list, or words read in the word list. So now I'm going to pop out of my PowerPoint for just a moment and walk you through how to run this report. Okay, so I'm going to go into my Read Live account. I'm going to log in as a staff member, and I will navigate over to the reports. I can do it through this drop-down menu, or I can click on my home button, scroll down to the bottom, and here I can see a tile marked reports. So either way will get me to the same place. The first couple boxes that are on that, or tiles on that screen, are administrative reports, information about rosters and passwords and that sort of thing. So the third one over is Read Naturally Live reports. That's what we're talking about today. That's what we're going to utilize. This Students at a Glance report is the very first one there. Okay. It is the best for analyzing how a student is doing. Are they making progress, and are they in the right spot? Because it provides you with averages. One data point can be misleading because sometimes there's good days and bad days and everything in between. So if you have an average, that is a much more solid number. So that Students at a Glance automatically does that for you. Okay. So if you were to select a student or students, you can do multiple students at once, all students, or just one at a time. Then you click Generate Report for selected. The beginning date is automatically the start of this school year, a typical start date for the school year, or in this case, the beginning of August. If you wanted to change that, you just need to click the date in the calendar, and that will change the beginning date for you. Then you click Generate Report, and here you can see you have this report on your students, the Students at a Glance report, which you can print, you can download it, and you can save it on your computer, whatever makes the most sense for how you want to get that information. So that is how you generate the Students at a Glance report. Once you have that report pulled on your students, you are going to take the average cold timing score from that report, and you're going to plug it into this placement table. So you need 2 pieces of information to do that, right? If you look in this table, you have a left column that says initial level. So you need to know which level the student's working in, and you need to know what their average cold timing score was, so that you can take that level and that cold timing score and see if it fits. If it fits, they are in the right level from a fluency standpoint. If it fits, it means that the computer would have put that student in the level they're in on placement day. Okay, so this means this range 30 to 60, 60 to 80, that is the words correct per minute range that we want for the cold score in order for them to continue in this level. That tells us they're in the right spot. The next thing we need to look at, though, is their comprehension. Placement doesn't get involved with comprehension. It takes a long time to do that kind of thing. And we need to get our kids who are struggling reading as quickly as possible. So our placement process is quick. But we want to make sure that we are checking for comprehension. You never teach fluency in a vacuum. You always need to check for comprehension. So you take a look at the average quiz score. If it is at 60% or above, the student can stay there, assuming their score is in the right range, their cold score is in the right range. Now, some people get a little ruffled over that 60% number. And I understand and I agree. None of us want our kids understanding at 60%. We want them at 80% or higher. But all this is saying is that you don't need to lower the student's level based solely on comprehension. Okay. Research shows that if a student can understand at least at 60%, they are able to make comprehension gains. So that is not a number that we just pulled from the clouds. Okay, so long as they're able to make progress, we can leave them there. All right, but if our students at 30% on comprehension, now their fluency score becomes less important. Now I got to get them down to a place where they can at least sort of understand what they're reading. Okay, so we're going to take some sample student data and we're going to ask ourselves whether or not the student's average cold timing score is in the range for her placement level. And we're going to ask about what her quiz is at. Okay, here is that placement table. I'm going to take Anna's data right off of this students at a glance report. Okay, and I'm going to ask you those two questions about the cold timing and the placement level and the quiz. I will ask both questions one at a time, and all the data you need to answer the question is going to be on your screen. Okay, so I will pause for a moment and see if you can identify the answer before I reveal it. So the first question is the average cold timing score for Anna in the range for her placement level. You need two pieces of information. You need to know what level Anna's working in, and you need to know what her average cold timing score is. So her level is right here. She's in level 5.6. Her cold timing score is 90. Okay, so then we take level 5.6 and 90 and we bring it up to this table. And so we can see that at 90 words correct per minute for level 5.6, her average cold timing score is right within that range. So I'm thinking, this is probably the right spot, because if on placement day I had gotten 90, the computer would have said, yep, this is the right level for Anna. Okay. The next question, is Anna's average quiz score at least at 60%? That data point is over here on the right. Now, remember, in your own students at a glance report, these columns are going to be labeled. Okay, so it'll be easier for you to identify on your own students' reports. So Anna's at 77%. So she's not below 60. I don't need to lower her based on comprehension. And her words correct per minute score indicates she's in the right spot. So what would you do? Would you continue Anna in this level? Would you raise Anna to a higher level? Or would you lower Anna to a lower level? What do you think you would do? Think in your head for a moment. Continue Anna in this level. Her words correct per minute score is right within the range. Her comprehension is good enough. Okay. Now we have some tables that provide kind of the rationale behind this that are available on our website. I'm going to be sending you the link to this. So none of this information do you need to memorize. We're going to send you links to the website where we have all these rationale tables that you can look at. We even have a checking initial placement calculator that I will show you. So there's lots of support on the website. So just know that information is going to be provided and available to you whenever you are ready to do this process with your own student data. So if we take a look at this table, it tells us that her average cold timing score was in the initial placement range. That's 90 is right between 80 and 100. And her quiz is between 60 and 79. So I can continue the level here, but I might need to provide a little comprehension support, right? She's below 80, so I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on that, right? Now, because we decided to leave Anna in level 5.6, we have to see whether or not her goal is the right piece, right? So those are the two things we're doing. Does she have the right level? Does she have the right goal? So Anna has the right level. What about her goal? Well, when we're talking about goals, we're actually talking about the relationship between two numbers. So we want the student's goal to be above her cold timing by about 30 for young students and 40 for older students. Okay. So young being 4th grade and below, older being 5th grade and above. So the cold timing and goal should be 30 for young, 40 for older. We want the goal and the hot timing score to be close to one another. But the hot timing score has to be above it, right? Think about this for a moment. When a student is doing their past timing, their hot timing, past timing and hot timing, we use them interchangeably. So when a student is doing their hot timing, she cannot pass, Anna cannot pass the story unless she reaches her goal, right? So her hot timing score is always going to be at least at her goal, but you don't want it way above the goal. Well, I'll say that differently. I suppose you want it way above the goal, but if that's happening, that indicates to you that the goal is too low, okay? So what does it mean to be too far away? What difference is too great of a difference? And what we say at Read Naturally is a double-digit difference. So if you're 10 or more away from where you want to be, that's too far away. So if it's a single-digit difference, that's close enough. Once you get to 10 or more away, then you need to make a change. The final thing you're looking at is the average number of times a student practices. Is it between 3 and 10? Okay. And again, this is a little, as with everything in education, it a little bit depends on the kid, right? Some kids are fine practicing 8 times. Other kids are madder than heck when they get to number 6, right? So sometimes you might need to make an adjustment based on the threshold for frustration that each kid can handle, okay? That is just the reality of the differences in our students. So all of this information that I have on this written page is available here in picture format. So if this is an easier way for you to consume that information, you can see here that the cold timing should be 30 or 40 below the goal. The hot timing should be near, but probably a little bit above the goal, right? So let's take a look at Anna's data. We're going to ask ourselves 3 questions to decide whether or not she has the right goal. Okay, we'll have that data available to you, and we're going to ask these one at a time. So does Anna's goal exceed the average cold timing by about 40? Well, here's her goal. Here's her cold timing score. Okay, what's the difference there? Well, that difference is 30. It's only 30. Anna's a 7th grader, so we want it to be 40. It's 10 away from where I want it to be. That tells me it's too far away. Okay, so right now I'm thinking maybe Anna could handle a harder goal, okay, based off this first question. So let's take a look at the second question. Is the goal and the hot timing close enough to each other? The goal is still 120, it didn't change, but now the hot timing is the number on the other side of the goal, so 132. So that difference is 12, so that's 10 or more away. So again, this question is indicating she might need a higher goal. So 2 of these 3 questions so far are telling me the goal might be easier than I want it to be. She is practicing 6 times with it, which is within that range. All right. So based on these 3 questions, I think Anna's goal is too low. So I would recommend raising her goal by 10 to 130. Notice, if I raise her goal to 130, look at her hot timing score. Can she still pass? Yes. Okay, so I'm not raising it to something that's going to make her frustrated. I'm raising it just enough that's going to keep her challenged, keep her engaged, let her know that she's making progress, right? Kids love being told they need a higher goal or a higher level. And so this is an opportunity to do that. So remember that table I showed you about level analysis? Well, here's a table that talks about goal analysis. So again, Anna's goal and her cold timing, the difference was only 30. The hot timing score was 12 words above her goal, and she practiced the right number of times. So because we had 2 indicators saying it was too low, we're going to make a change there. Okay. Now, we have what we call a checking initial placement calculator on our website. I'm going to send you the link to that, and you can utilize it with your students' data. All you have to do is enter your students' data from their Students at a Glance report into this calculator, and it will tell you what you should do. Okay, so you take the first 3 to 6 stories. Once they get to 7 or more, then we don't want to use this calculator. But if you're using it for the 3, 4, 5, 6 stories, that's the right information. So when you pull this calculator up on the website, all you're going to do is take your students' data and you're going to plug the data from this report into this location on the website. The number of the level, the number of stories, average cold timing, goal, average hot timing, number of practices, quiz. It tells us, look, continue level 5.6 and worry about comprehension a little bit. That's exactly what we decided, right? And goal, it tells us you should raise the goal by 30 to 130, raise it by 10. If you click on these triangles next to it, it provides you with those tables that I showed you. Okay, so all this information is available on our website. And I'm going to just pop over there for a moment so I can take you to this place on our website. Here you can see Read Naturally Live, checking initial placement calculator. And I'm going to send this. Oh, thank you. Christy sent that for me. So that link is in the chat box. Okay, so you can utilize that with your students' data. Here's how I recommend you using it. If you are totally new to this process, go ahead, run the report and see if it's right, and take that data with the calculator. Lean on the calculator real heavy. See what the calculator recommends. After you do that for a few students, you try to make the decision without the calculator and check your work with it. Okay, so do the next 3 students on your own and see, do I agree with the calculator? Right? Soon you'll be able to look down their reports and you won't need to do much of calculating at all. But this calculator can be utilized until you are confident in doing the process on your own. All right, we have 2 more students we'll go through quickly, Rob and Lee. Okay, we're just going to do this process 2 more times with each of these students. So Rob is a 4th grader. We're going to find out whether or not his cold timing score is in the range and what his quiz is at. That will tell us whether or not he's in the right level. Okay, so here's his data. Rob is working in level 3.0 and his cold score is 70. Is that within the range? So take level 3.0, plug it into this table. It is not within that range. It's outside that range. What about his quiz? Is he at least at 60? His quiz is over here. He's at 93. So he's doing really well on the quiz. And his cold timing score is outside the range for placement. So if that happened on placement day, if you gave level 3.0 to Rob on placement day, the computer would have said, nope, this isn't the right level. Try the next level up. Okay. So that's what you're going to do. Rob's level 3.0 is too easy. So you're going to raise him to the next level, which is 3.5. When you raise a level, you keep the goal the same. So that's the good news with Rob's data. As soon as you know you need to put him in a higher level, you also know that you don't need to worry about his goal. Raising 2 things at once tends to overwhelm students. So if you decide to raise a level, you'll leave the goal the same. So in this case, I'm going to put Rob in level 3.5, but I'm going to leave his goal at 95. The words are going to be harder. Content's going to be a little more challenging. So we're just going to increase the level and leave that goal the same. So we're done with Rob. We can go on to our final student, Lee. Okay. So here's the data on Lee. Let's take a look. Is his average cold timing score in the range for placement? I'll give you a minute to find it. I've circled it with my mouse the last 2 times. So see if you can find it on your own. You need the level the student's working in and the words correct per minute score, and then plug those 2 pieces of information into that table. So he's right in the middle, right? 41 words correct per minute. The range for the level he's in is 30 to 60. So I'm thinking this seems like the right spot for him so far. What about his quiz? Is he at least at 60%? Yeah, he's at 87%. So he's doing well. Okay. So his words correct per minute score is in the range. He's understanding well enough for me to keep him there. So do you want to continue, raise, or lower Lee's level? I would continue Lee in level 2.5. From a fluency standpoint, he's still reading very slowly. We can really hone in on this automaticity. 41 words in a minute is not very many words. Okay, so I don't want to put him in more challenging stuff, even though his quiz is strong. I'm going to leave him in level 2.5. So now I have to decide, do I need to raise his goal? Okay, so we've got those 3 questions about goal, and we can ask those one at a time. So the goal and the cold timing score. We want a difference of about 30 for Lee because he's a 3rd grader. Okay, so here's the goal. Here's the cold timing score, and there's the goal. All right, the difference between 70 and 41, of course, is 29. So that's not going to get much closer to 30 than that. So that tells me his goal seems appropriate, because if on placement day he read 41 words on the placement story, the computer would have set his goal at 70. Okay, so still right. Now we're looking at the relationship between the goal and the hot timing. We want them to be a single digit difference. It's 4 words. So again, I'm thinking, yep, this is right. Finally, he practices 6 times, which is the right number. So do we want to continue Lee with the goal of 70, raise or lower Lee's goal? Well, I would continue his goal, right? That's the goal the computer would have said. He still has to work hard to get there. He's got about 30 away. He's able to reach it, but he's not blowing it out of the water, right? So it's still challenging, but doable, which is that balancing act that we play in education all day, every day. You want your students as challenged as possible, and they need to be successful. So balancing those 2 things is really a huge part of the art of teaching, especially within Read Naturally Live. So that sums up the checking initial placement portion of monitoring student performance. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have a second section that's called Keeping Students Challenged. I will be presenting on that in 2 weeks. Okay, so February 22nd, I think. So go ahead and look for that. That's coming up, Keeping Students Challenged. And that is the phase you do once students have passed 7 or more stories. So if your students are at 7 or more stories, you're actually into that second phase of data analysis. What we just covered was when they're early on. Ideally, once they've passed 3 stories, they do checking initial placement. So in your handout and on my page right now, it includes links to the calculator. It includes links to instructions, as well as video and online courses. So that should be available. These links should be viewable in your handout as well. Thank you for all you do for your students. Reach out to us when questions come up, and I appreciate your time. Have a great day.